Patriots.
Enquanto você escuta seu podcast favorito, que tal dar uma olhada nos looks da Riachuelo para as festas de fim de ano? Brilhos, transparências, vestidos, conjuntos, temos tudo para todos os eventos. Aqui, toda festa começa com look.
Welcome into another episode of Missing the Point. It's your boy, Michael Marcangelo, joined by my guy and your guy, Hollywood Rayshawn Buchanan. We're doing our NFL weekly picks. This is what, NFL? This is week 15 already? 15 already. Man, this week is flying by. This year is flying by. A couple of programming notes. This will be my last show for, I would say, at least a couple of weeks here, as my wife and I will be welcoming our first child here this weekend. So I know that you guys are all applauding the fact that you won't have to listen to my voice anymore, but have no fear, I will return. So we're going to do our weekly picks. And then earlier this afternoon, Ray and I sat down with Mass Live's Karen Guregian, special friend of the show. So after we go to the picks, we'll actually cut into that interview, and you'll get to hear all of the hot takes from us and from Karen. It was a blast. But Ray, week 15 of the NFL season is upon us. We're starting with Thursday Night Football. It's a divisional game. It is the Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are favored by 2.5 points. I can't imagine why. Who do you got in this game?
Right. I think that's a joke that they're the favorite. Like they have not looked the part in a while. And I get it. I know they've had injuries. They finally have Brock Purdy back, but obviously, McCaffrey has been in the lineup. He's been more out than in. But needless to say, LA's rolling right now, and they're finally healthy at the right time of the season. Puka Nacua is a problem and a man. And obviously Cooper Kupp seems to, return back to not what he was in 2021, but just a savvy vet who can still get the job done. So, LA should get this done, even on the road. I got them.
If he's 80% of what he was in 2021 with Nacua there now, like that offense, that should scare the shit out of everybody.
Amazing. Right. Facts.
So I'm also taking the Rams in this one. Then we have Kansas City at Cleveland. Kansas City is favored by 5. A lot of their games, obviously, have come down to the last play. They have that horseshoe that we had stuck up our asses here for 20 years, firmly lodged in theirs. I think Kansas City is going to win this game. I like Jameis, but I don't think the Browns are going to do it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we used to say that Kansas City would win going away. Like, I don't think they're going to win going away, but they'll win. Once again, they're scoring 19, 20 points, and you still can't beat them. That's wild. That's wild. And, we get into a little bit about, on the Karen interview, but it's like when you got these guys that weren't great as head coaches, but are better as coordinators. Steve Spagnuolo is that personified, and he wasn't great in with the Rams, but for the Giants he was a great coordinator, and now he's a great coordinator, there in Kansas City. So yeah, he's putting in work, and that defense has gotten a lot better, and they're holding guys under 20 points. So if you can't score 20 against Kansas City, you have no chance. So yeah, Kansas City should win this one. It won't be a dogfight, but they'll win.
Cincy at Tennessee. Should we take even like 10 seconds on this one? It's Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, Cincinnati should win. I know their season has been a waste, but they should win going. They should win going away.
Yep. Commanders at Saints. Derek Carr likely out for the season. Commanders are favored by 7.5 points. Again, this should be an easy win for Washington.
Should be. They've been reeling lately, so I mean, it's not like they've been. They were kind of on fire the first 10, 11 weeks, and I think teams kind of figured them out. But this is a good way to have a get-right game. And, the Saints, to their credit, have completely quit after the firing of Dennis Allen. But they're not better than Washington right now. And I think that Washington found a way to get it done.
Ravens at Giants. I'm not a big Lamar supporter, but even I can't pick against the Ravens in this situation. The line is 14.5, so maybe if I'm feeling a little bit lucky.
I mean, what's your famous line? I'll pick them. I'll pick the Giants to cover, but Baltimore's going to
Yeah.
win. Yes.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's wild. Yeah, that's crazy.
Dallas at Carolina. Carolina's favored by 1.5, as they should be, because they've been playing hard these last couple of weeks, man. Like they took Kansas City to the brink. They took Philly to the brink.
Mhm.
That's a team that's fun to watch
Yeah.
now that they're trying. And Bryce
Right.
Young,
And
he's
it's
rewriting
just
all that script.
right. I mean, well, quick aside, man. I mean, I think that with Bryce Young, that obviously Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson are the two young quarterbacks that got benched this year for different reasons. Um, Bryce Young's benching seemed to help him in a major way, right? He's come back. He's been, seemed to be more focused. He was excellent in that fourth quarter yesterday
Yep.
against Philly. So he has recorded on a Monday. So yeah, he was good when they needed him to be. Some of the other teammates kind of failed him in the waning moments. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Carolina. I think that they finally get over the hump and get this one done. I know Dallas has obviously been better on the road. They haven't been as great at home. But once again, if they're going to keep their postseason hopes alive, as slim as they are, they got to find a way to get this win if they do. But I don't think they do. I see Carolina winning, maybe by a field goal.
Yeah,
So
I'm
basically,
taking Dallas strictly just because it's not in Dallas. If
okay.
this is a home game for the Cowboys, I'd be picking the
Really?
Panthers. We
Gotcha.
have Aaron Rodgers and the newly eliminated from playoff contention New York Jets visiting the Mac Jones-led Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jets are favored by 3.5. Give me the Jets. I mean, I don't care about this game, and I think actually I want Jacksonville to win, but I do think that the Jets are good enough to beat the Jags.
Yeah, because I mean, listen, Rodgers finally had his first 300-yard game since 2021. That's been a big joke on this show the last couple of years.
Well, I did say 2012 by accident.
Yeah.
Like that can't be right.
I mean, hey, it felt like it was that low, so it is what it is. But I can't believe how far they've fallen though. Like we've made jokes about the Jets obviously being New England Patriot fans, but to have a guy who, listen, regardless of what you think of him off the field, the man is a Hall of Famer. Obviously, he's a champion. He's a former MVP. Um, to see him and that team collectively that had so much talent coming into the year and has such high expectations, for them to kind of just take this nosedive, and I'm being friendly by saying this nosedive because it's really been a shit show. Um, I'm going with Jacksonville. I would not sit here and
Love
pick
that.
one. I'm riding with Jacksonville. I hope Matt goes for 350.
Oh, I want to be right more than I want to be happy, which is one of my biggest problems. So I appreciate that you picked the Jaguars. Yeah, she knows. We have the Dolphins visiting Houston. Speaking of nosedives, Houston's been on one recently. Like it doesn't feel like they are the team that we thought they were. Obviously, injuries have derailed them. Houston is a 2.5-point favorite. Miami is playing better. Give me Houston.
I'm gonna go with Miami. Like I've lost faith in that Houston team. And it really started with the game they had against us, right? I think in week 6, week 7. Yes, they won by 20. So I know people are going to comment, they smoked your team. Jerod Mayo plays he just dropped that day. Once again, not an opinion, that's a fact. Once again, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So Craig, we need it on the t-shirt. For the mcpshow.com, we need it on there. But anyways, I don't trust Houston at all right now. Maybe they'll come back next year and be better, but right now I can't do it. So I'm riding with Miami.
Indy visits Denver. Denver is a sneaky good team. I mean, Bobby was right. I'll give him his credit, obviously, because he's not here to talk more about it. But Denver is a really good team this year. Denver's favored by 3.5 points. I'll take Denver at home.
Yeah, same. The fact that they could possibly be 9-5 is like, wow. With Bo Nix is killing. Once again, he was the maybe 5th guy you thought about in his class. Like, Williams, Daniels, May, and then it was JJ, right? And then him. So then they went back to back at 11-12. Once again, Bo Nix being 94 years old and killing it is crazy. So, yeah, I'm rocking with the Denver Broncos on that one too.
One of these next 2 games should have been flexed to the 8:00 game. So we have Buffalo at Detroit.
Yeah.
Detroit's
They
favored by
they
two.
both made it. That should have been a Thanksgiving game. That'd have been dope.
Yeah.
Won't get that player, but I mean, obviously we don't know coming into the year, but you have an idea. Um, I'm Robert Detroit. They're just I don't
Me
know.
too.
Probably point and a half. They're basically saying us to pick them. Um, Detroit's on fire, and I just think to me their offense is incredible. Dan Campbell as a coach should be coach of the year. Like I don't know who else you could even think of being coach of the year.
Sean
Yeah,
Payton, Mike Tomlin.
yeah, outside chance, yeah. But I'm just like, if they go 15-2, 16-1, like I don't know how he's not that. So that's just my thinking. But yeah, this should be another,
Great game.
another shootout. Yeah, another great game, another shootout. But yeah, I'm a rock with Detroit.
Yeah, give me Detroit too. Just as a side, home team is usually he gets 2.5 to 3 points. This game right
Mhm.
now is 2 points in favor of Detroit, so it is basically a pick 'em when it's all said and done.
Right.
This other game, this should also be primetime, like the Monday night game, but it isn't. The Battle of Philadelphia, the Battle of Pennsylvania. We have Pittsburgh visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. This should be a great game. Philly's favored by 5.5. I think that's too high. I think the
Mhm.
defense of Pittsburgh, I hate the Steelers maybe not just as much as you do. You have an irrational hatred towards them and everyone that supports them. But I do think, their defense is legit. I still do, however, think that Philly's going to win this game. Their offense is too high powered. Their defense is not as good as Pittsburgh, obviously, but it's top 10 in the league. But this should be a fun game to watch. But
Yeah.
give me Philly.
So let me give a backstory to why that's the case, right? I'm not Stephen A. level with the Cowboys when it comes to the Steelers, but
You're close. You're like a low budget Stephen A.
well, so my favorite non-patriot growing up was Slash. For those who don't know that, his name is Cordell Stewart. I thought he was the man. I thought he was a beast, and I don't like how it ended with Cordell Stewart in Pittsburgh. So from then on, it's always been smoke. I've always wanted to beat them when we play them. I always want them to lose when it mattered because I'm like, Cordell Stewart was a guy and he should have been treated better there. In Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Because I hate that big band and they respect Charlie Batch more than they do fucking Cordell Stewart. Like that's wild to me.
Well, remember it was Tommy Maddox that
Sorry,
you
man,
said.
whatever. Yeah, whatever. Right, exactly. I forgot about him. But I'm that to me. Listen, I was a Cordell Stewart guy, but yeah, I mean, listen, they're playing really good. That can't be denied. Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach, hell of a leader. I said to say, that at the link, I'm riding with the Eagles.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Okay.
Wow, I almost threw up in my mouth there. So your New England Patriots will be traveling to Arizona to play the Cardinals. Cardinals are favored by 6.5 points. I think that this will be a close game. I think less than a touchdown is fair. I think Arizona's going to win. I think we're going to see a good performance out of Drake May. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be Drake's best game so far. But unfortunately, as it's been for most of the games this year, it won't be enough. I'm gonna put a score on it. I'll say Arizona 30, New England 20.
Right, so you would take Arizona and the points.
Yeah, because our defense can't stop a cold. They can't stop anything. So it's like it's ridiculous.
We have Tampa Bay traveling to LA to face the Chargers at 4:25. LA's favored by 3. Jim Harbaugh. Is it Jim or is it John? It's Jim in the LA, right?
No, Jim is there. Mm-hmm.
Jim. Great job on that team and rebuilding it. I think Tampa, they're fun, but I think Baker's starting to overstay his welcome here. I think we're starting to see the effects of having Baker Mayfield as your quarterback for 2 years.
It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun in the locker room anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to have fun as opposed to win, right? Like that's so. I guess in that, like, I'm Tom Brady, you're Baker Mayfield. You want to have fun. I want to win.
Yeah. I mean, once again, I listen. Let me be clear. I've been a Baker supporter on the show. I thought that he's had a really nice resurgence down there. And once again, context matters. They've had some injuries, to their skill positions. Which, although I think Baker's a decent quarterback, no quarterback survives losing that much talent and still be successful. So, but needless to say, like they're not winning on Sunday. It'll be the LA Chargers.
Yep. Sunday night game is Green Bay at Seattle. Seattle, I mean,
Yeah.
they've defied me. They're better than I said they were months ago. They keep winning. Green Bay's also, you know, that I got a little Jordan Love in my shorts, so I'm gonna take Green Bay, picking up the upset, picking up the win here. It's not an upset. Green Bay is favored by 3 points at Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Seattle loss for us is looking better, right? You know how I feel about that. I'd rather go out to win the fucking game, go win it. But for them to come in there, I think that made us 1-1 at the moment. For them to go 7-4 in that time span since then, it's huge. And I can't, once again, it's masterful work that's been done with Geno Smith's career in Seattle. And it's not matter. And I think because they have a rookie coach too, right? Or a second-year coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Rookie coach, yeah. Pete Carroll's not there anymore.
Yeah. So it's like you lose a legend out there, you don't miss a fucking beat. But yeah, listen to the interview. But it's wild to me. But yeah, I'm riding with Seattle. I'm gonna say Seattle at home. I like what the Packers have done. I think that they've had a really good season. Obviously, they are still a team to be reckoned with come playoff time, but I'm a Robert Seattle on this one.
And we got a doubleheader Monday night, the 16th. We have Chicago going into Minnesota. Sam Bradford coming off, not Sam Bradford. I always fucking say that. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold coming off a 5-TD performance.
For sure.
Oh, of course. Minnesota's favored by 6.5. I think that's very generous. It is a divisional game, I know, but I think Minnesota should win this game handily.
And hey, DK, bro, I once again, I don't want to pile on because it's not necessary. But this is more so about the Sam Darnold thing. When you have guys that can play that position, it elevates you. And for him, he was 22 or 28, 347, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 of them, 5 tutties. Are you kidding? Justin Jefferson going berserk, Jordan Addison, who should have been here too. Once again, another conversation for the day. I'm like, I don't know. He's out here flexing up people like this. Yeah, it's curtains. Once again, 6.5 is low. I'm sorry.
It's because it's a division.
They just hung 40. They just hung 40 on Atlanta. And I get it, divisional rival. They'll play a little bit harder.
It should.
Hardly believe that it's going. It might.
I mean, if Chicago has 5 yards or less of offense in the first half again, that it's gonna be ugly.
Oh, for sure. I'm saying like they're not better than Minnesota right now. So obviously any given Sunday, but nah.
and the final game of the week to wrap week 15 up will be Atlanta traveling to Vegas. The ATL, they're favored by 4.5 points. I think this should be a bounce back game for Kirk Cousins and for the Falcons.
On Monday night, all right.
On Monday night, which is odd that I'm saying this, but he's been on a hell of a streak during the losing streak. I don't think he's thrown a touchdown in 4 weeks. I think the Raider defense is a touchdown you can throw. Europe is a defense you can throw a touchdown against. If you can figure out a way to keep Max Crosby out your grill, you're gonna be fine. So give me the Falcons.
Yeah, same here. They go walk into Vegas, take over Vegas, and you know the rest. they go shut focus down. So, Vegas clearly is in play now to get a top 2 or top 3 pick. They do have the rookie of the year, in my opinion. He won't win it, but Brock Bowers has been
incredible.
He's been incredible. Gronk has or whatever word, Tony Gonzalez, like whatever word you want to, whatever title you want to compare him to, Kellen Winslow, whoever. But dude has been special. But unfortunately, like I said, he's just not enough at this moment. And I think they're going to like their third quarterback right now. I think Aiden O'Connell got hurt too, if I'm not mistaken. So, It's real quiet out there in Vegas, and yeah, just like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta did to Vegas what Minnesota did to Atlanta this past weekend. So which would double them up. So either way, Raiders going home with L.
Love it. All right. Well, we got to pay some bills around here. So we're going to pause for a word from our sponsors. When we come back, you're going to hear Ray and I speak to Mass Live's Karen Guregian. Stay tuned.
Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
It's the Patriots bye week, which means that we have a special guest lined up for you. She is not only the lead reporter for the New England Patriots from Mass Live. She not only worked for the Boston Herald, but she is the most requested and the most sought after and the most frequent guest here at Missing the Point, Miss Karen Guregian. Karen, how are you today?
Mike, I'm doing well. I'm doing okay. I had a weekend semi-off, sort of off, so that's always good.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Patriots, I was sort of self-scouting. I was recharging and self-scouting, and so I'm ready for the final month of the season.
I can promise you've done more scouting than them, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I did a big report card on
No.
Yes, we're gonna get into
so that's what I'm saying. That's the scouting type of scouting I did. So anyway.
So we made a big error, a scheduling error. I'll blame our producer because he's not here to defend himself. By not having you on at the beginning of the season to understand what your overall expectations were, Patriots.
And to give a prediction like I usually do.
I know that's
you're losing out on money because I've kind of predicted it right at least once.
What did you predict this year? Do you remember?
It was either 5 or 6, but since it's closer to 5, I'll say 5.
Yeah, that feels right.
Right.
It wasn't, put it this way, it wasn't a lot.
Given that they are 3-10. And I did your report card. Obviously, that was published on masslive.com on Monday.
Yep.
What would you say is their most glaring issue facing this team right now?
Lack of talent.
You would put that over lack of experience for coaching?
I think talent makes coaches look good.
Or
put it this way, makes coaches look better.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
So, and I think talent would have helped the kind of rookiness of the coaching staff a little bit. I think you can tell, it's hard to tell with the first year staff, but sometimes, as we saw with Bill Belichick for so many years, with the help of Tom Brady, but I'm talking about the defense in particular, is that Belichick could make an average or pedestrian defense look much better than it was because he was a master at hiding the weaknesses. He was a master at subterfuge and confusing quarterbacks and moving guys around and in that way, again, he could get away with not having a pass rush, which is part of this problem. Not being able to tackle. It's just, or not being able to have linebackers cover. So, he could mask mistakes better than anyone I've seen. And you would have thought maybe some of that would have rubbed off on Jerod Mayo and DeMarcus Covington. Perhaps when they had a full team and didn't, weren't dealing with injuries to key people and guys being in trouble and so on and so forth, perhaps the defense wouldn't look as bad as they are or they've looked.
Yeah.
But, this rookie staff hasn't adjusted to injuries and absences as well as their successor or their previous coach.
Ray?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say everything because once again, we looked through the article. I thought majority of the grades were spot on. A couple of D's that were given, I thought you were kind. It could have been an F. Like that, and this is coming from I teach when I don't do this, so it's just like I'm more of a harsh grader. But yeah, I mean, listen, I would say it's probably just both sides of the line, right? I think that's the bearing. A weakness for both of them. I mean, for the team, like I just think they can't.
Talent applies to the line too.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for those, I mean, this is going to be something that listen to this and say, how can they not say coaching is the number one thing? I mean, once again, coaching is honest, or they read the article, they can talk about the coaching ad nauseum. But
that was a D.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
A D.
Yeah.
It's not, not like I was getting, but I actually, not to defend giving D's instead of F's to the places I gave D's, offensive line being one, defensive line, coaching staff.
Right.
I think the coaching staff got away with it because of Drake May. They developed Drake. So, I mean, it's not a total fail, but I think the reason I might be generous or easy in not giving them F's is the players, is the offensive line underachieving? No, they're not, because they're not good. And to penalize them for not being good or just playing to the level that they are, it's kind of tough for me to flunk them because, again, this is just me talking. I think some of these false start penalties, some of these holding calls, these repeated calls are because these guys are overmatched and they're trying to find ways not to get Drake killed. So the false starts is a tackle looking to get a little bit of a jump on the defensive end that's going to make them look silly.
Yeah.
Right? The holding is, okay, I can't let Drake get killed. They're not good. They're not good enough. And as I said, so for me, it's hard to flatline them with an F.
Right.
The defensive line, they were missing Barmore most of the year. They traded Judon, not that he's turned out to be any good. But they're getting pushed back, but you have guys in there, Daniel Aquali, who's a reserve, you have a bunch of reserves around Devon Godchild. Am I going to, give them an F? Because again, everyone around Godchild is either a guy they picked up off the street or a guy that's not at really starting caliber.
Done.
So if there's a category for the front office, maybe that's where the F would go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, but
I didn't have that category.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, maybe as season's ended, right? Because obviously, we'll see what happens. But obviously, that leads into what we were going to ask next. So it's like, obviously, they'll have a plethora of questions they have to answer in the offseason. So just what kind of shakeup do you expect to happen in the offseason? And then, do you still believe that Mayo's job is still in good standing going into next season?
All right. Put it this way. Number one, he was Robert Kraft's personal selection. And it was his personal selection years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah,
I don't think he wants to part with Jerod Mayo after 1 year, especially, again, he inherited a really crappy situation. The roster was he inherited the worst roster in the league when he walked in the door and was named the head coach. Does that mean he hasn't made mistakes? Oh, he's made mistakes. But I just think it's too early. I don't think it's just too early to say to not give him a chance next year. Now, for the other coaches, I think some changes need to be made. And again, Jerod has to be honest with assessing his coaching staff. And the bigger problem was that Elliott made most of the selections on the offensive side because Jerod just didn't have the contacts. He hasn't been a coach that long. But again, do you blame Jerod for that, or do you blame the people who hired him in putting him in this spot a little bit too early?
Yeah.
Because he didn't have he didn't have connections across the league to bring in people or to persuade people to come here.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems to me like they just never, well, not never, but it just feel like they didn't even bother to really reach out to. I mean, obviously, he brought in the AVP or whatever, but I know there was names like Nick Haley that was brought up. Obviously, the pipe dream was really, Ben Johnson from Detroit, who looks like he's probably going to be in Chicago at season's end. I don't know. I just think, to me, like them not doing their due diligence on really finding. Once again, if you wanted Mayo to be the guy, fine. I mean, whatever. Like that's cool. But it's kind of like the same thing with the Celtics, right? We remember, Joe Mazzulla not being that experienced, but in this last season, they brought in Sam Cassell, brought in Charles Lee, brought in some other guys that can help. So I think maybe if they did that, I think we would feel better about Mayo's that role going forward.
So in that way, I think we'll see, because there's no question Mayo could use an experienced former head coach who doesn't mind being a co-coach or an assistant coach. I mean, I thought that was kind of Ben McAdoo, but anyway, someone who can help him with game situations, or just, Jerod, it doesn't hurt to be aggressive here, I mean, for the one from the goal line, your team is overmatched in every single game. Again, you have to look at what you are and the circumstances and who you're playing. And you're not gonna beat certain teams kicking field goals, not going for it for 4th and 1. And again, if you don't make it 4th and 1 and lose, what's the difference? You're losing anyway.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Well, totally agree. Yes. Yeah, me and Mike have been the odds all year about how certain things, but
it just, again, in some ways it doesn't make sense. They're so conservative on offense, and yet they're aggressive on defense. What's the difference there? I'll point out a couple. One, I think Jerod, because his expertise is not offensive football, not yet anyway, is basically leaving that to the people who are handling the offense. Okay. And I don't think he'll jump in and say, no, let's go 4th down, when he has the capability of doing that. I don't think he wants to jump on Alex Van Pelt, because again, who has the experience in these situations? It's Van Pelt. It's not Mayo. Whereas defensively, number one, I don't think he stepped in enough when it's come to DeMarcus Covington. But again, just picking the wrong times to go zero blitz and the wrong quarterbacks to go zero blitz.
Yep.
I mean, Matthew Stafford, why are you blitzing? Again, do they look at numbers? But I can almost, I don't want to give them an excuse, but when you don't have people who can get to the quarterback themselves, when you don't have pass rushers, you have to try and do something to get to the quarterback or bother him a little bit. And I think that's why they've been gambling more on defense with these zero blitzes and just hoping somebody will still get to the quarterback or bother him enough so they don't make these plays on 3rd down and 4th down or whatever it is. But I think they've just picked their wrong spots to gamble and the wrong quarterbacks to gamble against.
It's interesting because during that period of time, I would say from like 2009 to 2014, when our defenses weren't great, Bill did a great job of perceived pressure, where it looked like that they were going to be rushing 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And then they all went back.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
the time where Mayo was a player. So isn't it interesting that like he doesn't, and I know I'm simplifying it, but why aren't we seeing more of that? Because he doesn't have the horses, sure, but he knows what it looked like.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and it's almost like a microcosm of what we saw between Matt Patricia and Brian Flores. Matt Patricia was much more conservative, right? He didn't gamble. He didn't blitz at all. When he left and Flores took over, I mean, he like sent the house all the time.
All the time.
Right? And perhaps that was because he had better personnel or better players or better guys in the secondary, with Steph Gilmore and company, that, he was able to do that. But it's interesting, though. Flores has taken that philosophy wherever he's gone. Patricia has had the conservative philosophy wherever he's gone, even as an offensive coordinator. So, and they all were taught by Belichick, but both of them kind of came out different.
Right.
So perhaps that's what we're seeing, both with Covington and Jerod Mayo.
In the when talking about like the type of a shakeup, right? Because I've been on the hill this entire season that there's no way Kraft is going to let go of Mayo.
No,
because
there's none.
he publicly came out and said that he's the chosen one. He handpicked him to replace Bill, right? So, and we know how it appears he likes to be perceived in public. But I have a question. I don't know if you can't answer this, but I want to ask anyway. Was Bill O'Brien ever asked to stay on with Jerod Mayo, and how different do you think the offense would look had he done that?
I think he was. But I mean, Bill O'Brien was. What I don't know is if he was going to be able to pick his staff, because when he came last year, he didn't get to pick his staff. He was just given the people he was given and had to work. He got one guy. He got to have one coach, and that was his tight ends coach. But the offensive line coach was in place. The receivers coaches were in place. The running backs coach was in place. So Bill didn't get to, and I don't know if they said that's not going to change or again, I don't know the dynamics of that.
Yeah.
But I think O'Brien said, you know what, I'm going to go back to college and see where that takes me.
He did they gave him an interview, I think, on NBC Sports Boston early in the season, and they had asked him about that. I think Michael Holley had asked him, and he said he was like, I left because he said he wanted to give Jerod a chance to pick his own staff, right? He was like, I'm a Belichick guy, so he was like, Jerod should come in, new staff, fresh, renewed. So
that's not real, though. That's not real. That's what he tells the public.
That was his answer on TV.
Right. Yeah. But I do think there were Belichick guys and perhaps not Belichick guys. And O'Brien was clearly a Belichick guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean he didn't like Mayo or couldn't get along with Mayo, but there's allegiances there, and it's funny. One son stayed and one son left.
Right.
One of Belichick's kids stayed, one of them left. But I think some of the people who, I think, it was kind of a cordial, if you want to stay, or, I don't think it was like, please, please, please stay. I think, it was like,
Right.
we'll work with it if it happens. And I think some people just decided to, walk out the door. And I think some of them left thinking that Bill was going to get a job and they would go with him.
Right.
But as we've seen, Bill did not get the Atlanta job or any other job. But some of the people who kind of were in waiting, whether it was people formerly here, I fully expect Josh McDaniels to go wherever he goes. I fully expect Matt Patricia to go wherever he goes. And I fully expect Joe Judge to leave college and go, even if it is college, and go wherever Bill goes. I mean, these are Bill guys. They're going to stay with him through thick and thin. And I almost think you might see a front office person too, or a few leave, whether it's Matt Groh, who basically owes the job to Bill Belichick.
Right.
So
Elliot Wolf can go too.
Yep.
Well, I'm not sure, since he has the position of power.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Belichick gives him that same role with that same money, we'll see.
I just asked the Billy O'Brien question just from a developmental standpoint, right? Because it can't be argued that Deshaun Watson never looked better than when Billy O'Brien was his head coach.
Right.
Right. So why not keep a guy and do what you say? Let him bring in his team. If you have the 3rd overall pick, you're going to take a quarterback. Like, this is the guy that I would have wanted to develop him. Now, early in the season, I was calling for AVP's head. Like, I still don't think he has a great feel for the game, but it does look like Drake May is getting better. So is that because Drake May is just that much more physically gifted than what we're used to over the last 5 years here in New England? Or is it because him and AVP are starting to mesh?
I think it's both. And I know that's kind of a non-answer, but I honestly believe it's both. Because watching Drake May, as many of us did at training camp or even before, in the early camps and the rookie camps, watching his feet then and kind of watching how he's progressed in that, is it just Drake, or are these guys really hammering it home? So I would say it's probably a little bit of both. And you can see too, it's just, I think Drake has gotten better just about every single week he's played, or has done something, maybe not the whole picture better, but there's some phase or element that you see he's either developed or improved. And I think we've all seen that every single week. And it's hard to just say, oh, that's because he's a fast learner and he's good, whatever. Well, someone's got to be teaching him or showing him on film.
Yeah.
So, and, AVP, while not having a reputation as a play caller, because he really didn't do that, he did come with a reputation of developing quarterbacks. And he went through like 5 of them last year in Cleveland, and somehow, they got into the playoffs with Joe Flacco. So, he has to be doing something right, but it's not just him. And he also got to bring in his quarterback coach, T.C. McCarthy, or somebody that he's worked with. He got to bring in the offensive line coach, or at least have these people, or, Elliott might have brought them in as a full package, just to make Alex comfortable, the offensive line coach, the quarterback coach. He knew McAdoo from time in Green Bay. I think everyone but the wide receivers coach might have been, someone that was either handpicked by Alex or someone that Alex gave a thumbs up to because he had worked with them previously and was comfortable with them.
Good, Ray.
Gotcha. Want to go back up to the front office. So obviously, and speak about the owner. Kraft has made a lot of different statements, and I feel like he's more worried about the Hall of Fame and obviously the betterment of the team at this moment. But the biggest thing he's mainly said is that always going to be a longer rebuild. We know this. Do you believe that that's fluff that he's saying to the media? And do you think he's actually committed to the rebuild going forward?
I don't. I've never thought he's somebody who likes to lose or likes to be not relevant or have his team be not relevant. So I think he cares. I think he needs to show a little more in terms of, they have all this cap space next year, you better use it, So, I mean, that's the way he can be committed. Perhaps in his mind, putting some kind of timeline on the coaching staff or on Mayo in his mind, maybe is it a 2-year window he has? Is it a 3-year window? I think he has to resolve in his mind, this is Kraft, how much rope he's going to give. And I think the same thing applies for Elliott Wolf. Because, ultimately, they went about replacing the greatest coach of all time, who was clearly not helping the cause with his drafting and because he was the boss. He had to go. I'm not saying Belichick had to go, but they knew it was coming, right? I'm sure that they thought it was going to be a little longer to let him get Shula's record and then have a nice, sweet send-off. But it just got to be untenable with Belichick still here, and they really needed to cut the cord. That's fine. But where was the plan outside of Mayo? Where was the plan? And it's the same thing with Belichick and Brady. When they parted with Brady, what was the plan? Are you telling me they didn't have a plan? That's how it looked. They waited till July to grab Cam Newton. And even then, he was at a point where he was pretty much at the end of the...
Yeah, he was done.
He was done.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me, and this is, obviously it's hard enough to replace the greatest quarterback who ever lived or the greatest coach who ever lived, but they haven't even given they didn't give themselves a chance in either case, in my estimation.
Well, the replacing Brady thing, though, that ties into Bill's philosophy that I think he felt like a lot of Patriot fans felt like you could win 9 games with Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
we can coach above that, right?
Yeah.
And when you look back to that offense compared to the Jacoby Brissett version this year, we were clamoring for that 2020 offense again because at least they moved the ball.
Right.
At least they moved the sticks, right?
Yeah.
Do you think? So I guess this is a weird. I'm going to try and frame it the right way. Knowing how Robert Kraft and his family and his team feel about being perceived as winners, how do you think he's handling the type of feedback that he's getting from both fans and media? And he went from Brady and Belichick always having the A squad in terms of the commentary, stadiums always filled, and now it's you get the C team. Tickets are $15 if you want them that same day. You can get them for that. Shouldn't that escalate how quickly he moves to rebuild this team? and his willingness to spend? And why haven't we seen that?
It should. Well, you didn't see it. Well, I can't. There were factors. It's not like they didn't try to bring Ridley here, or they didn't try to get certain people. They didn't want to come here, right?
Well,
They
he didn't
didn't.
want to pay Ridley what Tennessee paid him.
Right, right. But they. It's not like they were. It's not like they weren't in the bidding.
Right.
But then I think what ultimately happened is when they found out that like Ridley wasn't going to come here no matter what, why are they going to keep up in the price?
So do you think
Right.
he is the right type of
I mean,
owner?
that's almost more embarrassing.
100%. But I think right now we're in the situation where we're going to have to pay 15% more than any other team to
Right.
get star players here. Do you think
Yeah.
we'll see that willingness this offseason?
I do. I
Really?
do. Yeah. At least I've gotten indications of that, I'll say.
Oh
But they
my.
also have something else better to sell, and that's Drake May.
Right.
Right.
And some receivers watching him this year, watching seeing what he is,
Mhm.
if they're convinced that the team is going to spend money or is going to make the proper moves to make them more successful or give Drake May even more of a chance to succeed.
Mhm.
If the Patriots are paying 15% above, perhaps these free agents will come here. You just have to hope that they're the guys who like are protectors, like left tackles, as opposed to trying to buy right tackles to play left tackle. I mean,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, I mean, but that's me. That's why, like you said, you mentioned Drake May being a big selling point now, and obviously, like he's become the best player on the team, in a short amount of time. Him and Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion. But like this is why, like me and Mike had it back and forth all year. But like this is why I wanted Drake May to start from the beginning, because I'm like, listen, even if you're not going to win a lot of games, get as much tape on him as possible, so that you can say, so that you can say, hey, they may, okay, I can see myself here. I can do this. Okay, we win this game if I'm here. We win that game. So it's like that. That's how I saw
Yeah.
it. But you alluded to the cap space a few moments ago. So I think it's they have over 130 million.
132
132
at
million.
last look. Yeah.
Yep.
Who at the wide receiver position? Because that's always the biggest thing that we're looking for. Outside of line help. Who were some targets as you would look at?
T. Higgins, for sure. But I just want to rewind for 1/2 second.
Mhm.
Again, not to defend Elliott Wolf, because I do think he could have done better. But their areas of need last year, whether it was receiver or left tackle, the free agent classes weren't great in those in those areas. There's only like a select few, and that was a select few. Was it Tyrone Smith wasn't going to come here?
Right.
He's a veteran who wants money and doesn't want to end his career on a loser team. So I mean, there was just the better players weren't, they couldn't be competitive, with them. I think the free agent market next year for both wide receiver and tackle or left tackle will be better. Chris Godwin is another wide receiver. You just need some semblance of a number one. And again, because it slots the other guys better,
Right.
as opposed to Kendrick Bourne seeing the top cornerback, or Pop Douglas going against the top cornerback on the other team and being shut out. Well, they get to go against the number 2 guy or the number 3 guy. It just slots them better if you have that one stud. So, and I think they get that. I do think they do get that. And I do think, given all the outrage over the missteps with trying to have right tackles play left tackle and yada, 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 I think, I think they'll figure that out too. And
Well,
if they don't, oh boy.
obviously
Yeah,
they saw the need for wide receiver the same way that you just described. Once they were out on Ridley, they made a concerted effort to draft wide receivers. My big thing, though, Karen,
And they also went for the San Francisco guy.
Brandon Ayuk.
Right,
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk. But again, then they found out Brandon Ayuk had no intention of coming to them, no matter how much money they were throwing or whatever it was. So again, that's the position they're in.
The real question, though, right? This is where I need you, as always. This is my yearly Karen, stop me from jumping moment.
Yes.
They drafted two top wide receivers prospects that neither appear to be able to catch or stay on the field.
Stay on side
why can't we draft skill position players? Why?
Yeah, I don't have that answer, but I'm not ready to give up on either one yet. I think no. Well, put it this way. I think Polk, they've been playing in the wrong position. And I think he's more suited to play in the slot.
Yeah.
But for whether it's Van Pelt or the wide receivers coach, Tyler, I can't think of his last name right now. Having him again, when you're a rookie, you want to be in the spot you're usually in, and he hasn't been there, and it's messed with him. Okay. I think Baker has a ton of talent, and they haven't been able to harness it. They haven't, and part of it's on him, because I don't think he knows the playbook, or he tends to be in the wrong spot. Neither of these kids seems to understand spacing in routes. They always seem to be in a place where they shouldn't be.
Mm.
That part goes back to coaching. So perhaps if they tweak the coaching staff in that area, that might help those kids, or they're just going to turn out like Tyquan Thornton.
Aaron Dobson.
Well, yeah, but it's been the last quarter of a century. It's been like that. We can't even say that it's been. I mean, from the Bethel Johnsons to Chad Jackson's, like Chad Jackson at the top, like that was brutal.
Yeah,
it's terrible. Aaron Dobson, like you name it, like it's never, like you remember it was certain moments the guys had, but they cannot get that right. And it's wild, because like a team like Pittsburgh in the Tomlin era, they just spit out wide receivers.
Like, I know it. I would steal someone from that organization to
please.
But here's the thing. So Belichick left, but the people who scout didn't leave.
Right.
Okay. And Elliott was in there. Matt Groh was in there. Their scouts were still in there. And while Belichick had the final say on the Tyquan Thorntons of the world, or whoever, N'Keal Harry especially,
over DK Metcalf,
and supposedly this group didn't want him to take N'Keal Harry, but I have to believe some of these other people that they've taken in the second round, third round, again, these are the same people doing the evaluating and picking.
So yes, so I'm glad you brought that up, because another one of the emphasis that Mike and I have talked about throughout the season. I didn't believe this was year one of the rebuild. Mike says this is year one of the rebuild because it's like, Brady's fully gone, Belichick's gone. But you just helped make my point. There's still too many people that were part of Belichick's regime for it to be completely year one. When you still have Matt Groh, you still have Elliott, you still have guys that were there, they still have his philosophies. You needed to clean
Right,
house completely, in my opinion.
right.
And I think that's part of the reason why
And
there's
the Crafts weren't willing to do that because
yeah,
Why?
that's
why
they,
them?
you know, so, I think they thought if these people got out from under Bill's
Chad.
control,
Mhm.
yeah, that, perhaps that they would grow on their own or they would, evolve into being good people, having, learn from him, but not having to have him dictate, you know,
Yeah,
picks and things like that after Bill makes a phone call to one of his buddies in college football and decides to, you know, go over the head of his head scouting's, whatever the report says, Bill's going to do his own thing. Well, I know Elliott has come in and put in a new system of how they scout. It's a whole new way of doing it. And maybe they just haven't totally adjusted to that. But guess what? You can't keep failing drafts.
Right.
That's poison for any football team. These drafts are how teams improve and get better.
but
And they just can't miss as much as they've been missing. Or again, the Crafts are going to have to step in and clean house.
yeah, I'm with option number 2, clean house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they
gotcha.
haven't. But the other problem is, because they didn't interview anyone. Well, I guess they interviewed for Elliott's post
Yeah,
before he got it. But interviews are important because you gain wisdom talking to people, or
Right.
perhaps see that your methods are outdated or your methods can improve, or you could also find out how you're perceived in the scouting or this community, whatever it is. Interviews are knowledge, whether you're going to hire the person or not. It's
Yep.
information, and to have them just kind of dismiss that, I think, is coming back to haunt them a little bit.
It feels like they insulated themselves, right, from the rest of the NFL because of the 20 years they had with Bill. They thought that they could just keep pumping up people that worked under him. But how much of it do you think goes back to your original or one of your points that you made a little bit earlier on was with Jerod not having a ton of coaching experience or actually any coaching experience outside of Belichick, not a big network. How hard of a task would it be to completely rebuild your scouting organization under a guy that doesn't have that many contacts, doesn't know what he's looking for?
Yeah. Well, Karen, there's the rub right
Right.
there. You know, but again, they haven't done their homework to know, who's respected in the scouting community, who's a possibility. I mean, I don't even know if they know possibilities for any of these roles,
Right.
right.
right? But basically, they had to rely on Elliott, who's been around. I mean, he was with Green Bay, he was with Detroit, I think with Cleveland. He's been around. At least he has a little bit of experience and he does know people. And I think basically the Crafts had to rely on Elliott to kind of, make, the scouting staff. And again, he's changed their whole grading system. And also Elliott to provide coaches for
Right.
the offensive side of the ball. And that's what they relied on, basically.
Something that Ray brought up earlier in the season, and I wanted to bring it up now because I think it really ties into this conversation is how important do you think it would be for Jerod to become best friends with a guy like Robert Saleh to then use Robert Saleh's contacts with everyone from San Francisco to get
Yeah.
their offensive contacts? Like he needs, this is now where there are so many people out there. It doesn't matter. I don't want Robert Saleh as a head coach. If you want to bring him in as someone to talk about the defense with, but just more so, it feels like Mayo needs mentors, and there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunities in the league right now with head coaches either that will be fired or have been fired that have deep wells. So how would he go? How does he go about doing that? What's the first step?
Well, I mean, And he started to do it like at the combine, where all these people are gathered, right? Or at these type of things, or at the league meetings where all of these coaches, all of these staffs are there, or mostly at the combine. That's where you get to know people mostly. And, he started to do that last year. But again, that's such a small
Right.
small sample size of people that he's just sort of getting inroads and chatting with, talking about beliefs and whatnot, that he's just starting to get that network because he certainly doesn't have it right now. The other thing is you have to look at, why would Robert Saleh come here? Right? Or why would somebody who was just fired and is looking to kind of rebuild himself or get himself back in that, why would they come to a team that's rebuilding? Again,
Well,
I mean,
that's
if
one
you
of
can write, if you can write the ship here, you can write it anywhere. That's I mean, to
Right.
me, that's the selling point. Like that's
Sure.
that's how I see it personally. I mean, I'm not usually the half glass full when it comes to stuff like that, but in that moment, if you can rewrite,
Well,
if you can,
it's true, but it's like, but who's going to get the credit? And again, you have to look at credit. If I'm a defensive, and this was before now, with Belichick here, anyone on the defensive side, like everyone always said, well, Belichick's still the mastermind. Belichick is still making the game plans. Belichick is still the guy you see on the sideline talking to the players. And that's why, some of these guys haven't got chances. But then when they did, Matt Patricia fell on his face. Right?
oh, yeah.
So, but not everyone, because, I think, well, Brian Flores didn't last long as a head coach in Miami, but I think people are seeing that he has value as a defensive coach, as a defensive coordinator. But again, I think a lot of people were leery because they just figured that Belichick ran the whole thing, and
Yeah. But that's not the
and
case here, as evidenced by the 13 games this season. Like this defense is
Yeah,
not good.
everything's like, yeah, they need all help they can get, and once again, you don't see too many leaps from a D line coach to to the coordinator. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of things they just didn't do due diligence on, and because of that, they're suffering from it. So I hope that they, everything's
well,
in a year two. How do we know that? How do we know you're gonna be back in year two?
what's interesting? Mayo's lone hire was Covington for his
Yeah.
coaching staff.
Right.
Everybody else came from, honest to God, everybody else, even his defensive line coach was a connection of Elliott's. So, or the guy that replaced, Covington. Although I think he probably did hire Hightower too, but Mayo was not responsible for anyone except of a significant role, except Covington.
But I
So
just
kind
think
of like Kraft, is he going to dump Covington?
well, if you just look at what worked here at first, right? That first part of our dynasty, and I hate calling back to it, but it's Belichick knew what at that point in time, what his strengths and weaknesses were. So he brought in Charlie Weiss. He brought in Romeo Crennel. Like that was Romeo's defense and Charlie's offense, and Bill was just the ringleader. They need to set up Mayo to do something similar, right? So having a guy like Saleh, who, by the way, has a very Kraft-friendly contract because the Jets will be paying him for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why not?
The other part of that, in the older days anyway, when Belichick first started and had Charlie and had Romeo, he always had people underneath them who were being mentored or being groomed to be the next guy if each one left. There was always a successor. Eric Mangini, Josh McDaniels, whoever it was,
Brian
Bill
Dable.
O'Brien. There was somebody, and in that way, because again, it's like you're having depth on your coaching staff. If someone leaves, the next guy, it's the next man up to take over
Right.
the role. But
Right.
by doing that also, you're not changing your systems every year and having and the players aren't having to learn a new system every year. And I know Brady talked about that. Yes, he lost Charlie, but the guy who replaced Charlie, was a student of that same offense. And the offense didn't change. The only changes were the tweaks that Brady and whoever made to that base offense or that same offense. And over years, it just got more complicated and complicated. But Brady didn't have to learn anything new. It was the same offense. Same thing with the guys on defense. It was the same basic, system, with wrinkles added in. But you weren't, again, the learning curve, having to learn the complexities of these things wasn't as difficult. Where you saw it was difficult for new guys coming in. Chad Ochocinco looking at this offense and going, huh? But some guys couldn't adapt. It was too complex, or since they weren't in it from the start, it was hard to pick up midway through, or as the playbooks got more complex.
So I do want to actually have some positive talk in this conversation. We will.
What, this hasn't been positive?
and here is the segue. Obviously,
Right.
we know that, and you saw you wrote about it on your report card for Mass Live, right? It's Drake. They have their guy. Drake is the guy. Because you have such great connections and conversations with everyone from the team. What are some of the biggest differences between Drake and Mac from both like a leadership perspective and a coach and a coaching perspective that you've noticed, that you've heard?
The reputation he had was, he was really smart, could make quick decisions and quick reads, and could get rid of the ball quickly. So he was the prototype for that Brady, the offense that had been carried on through the years, because mentally he could handle it. And he also had a very quick release, and he was fairly accurate in, 5 to 10 yards, 15 yards out. Okay. But that was, and we saw how Josh McDaniels was able to utilize that in Mac's rookie year, and Mac looked good. He was a Pro Bowler.
A Pro Bowler.
I'd say he's a Pro Bowler. But I mean, I think again, in that offense with the right personnel, they figured Mac could succeed. But here's the difference. When you don't have an offensive line, when you don't have weapons who can separate, when you need your quarterback to make the people around you better, that was not Mac's strong suit. Enter Drake May. Number one, his arm is it's like night and day. I mean, for Drake to be able, Mac tried to roll right and throw left.
Often.
Yeah, and he never should have, because that's not his wheelhouse. That's not his ability.
Yeah.
Whereas you watch Drake May roll right and throw left accurately and with mustard on the ball, huge. That is huge, a huge difference. His ability to throw the ball downfield, another huge difference. His ability to take off at the right time and kind of know and have a better sense of the pocket and the feel of the pocket to know when to take off as opposed to every single time when the rush comes. His pocket awareness and sense, again, is so much better than Mac Jones' ability. His ability to throw guys open,
Right.
because of his arm and because of his, again, it's like a field awareness that he has. Knowing where he can read a defense. He'll know where the defenders are, and he'll know where to put the ball before the receiver even gets there. I mean, those are kind of special
Yep.
special skills. I mean, talking to Austin Hooper is like blown away by how good he is at stuff like that at age 22. And, he tells me, I've played with quarterbacks much older who've been in the league much longer who don't have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
To, again, put the ball where only the receiver can catch it. Brady had that ability. I'm not comparing the two, but there are, again, certain things about Drake May that are so advanced for his age. And in comparison with Mac never had those skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Drake does.
No. Yeah, no, I mean, it became pretty obvious that he had plateaued. I mean, talking about Mac after his rookie year. Right now, obviously, when you have them as change, and obviously, I think maybe that's what they're trying to do now. They don't want to have them as change because of what happened with Mac Jones a few years back, where you're bringing in Matt Patricia, you bring in Bill O'Brien in his third year.
Yeah, I mean, Mac was sabotaged. There's no question about that.
Well,
But beyond that, again, his ceiling, Drake's ceiling, is so far above Mac's ceiling. And that's the biggest difference, is where their ceilings are. And I, if Mac wasn't ruined, he might have been a decent quarterback or a backup quarterback, but he got wrecked so much that he's even not good in Jacksonville.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday, I was like, wow. I mean, not even wow, because you're not surprised anymore when he has a subpar performance, but it was just like, wow, like I didn't know it was still this bad.
He could,
Listen, that's been Elliott Will's best move.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
but by far. So thank you. That I was like, he won the offseason just for that. In that regard. But so I know obviously you're down there weekly, and you're in there. But what has been? So we've heard reports about how they've been kind of joyful at times, in the locker room after games. But just what do you feel is like the overall mood of the team right now? Because obviously it hasn't been much success, this year. But just can you speak to the overall feeling of the locker room going into the final quarter of the year?
well, I think the the best thing that Jerod Mayo had going for them, at least to this point, is that the players were still playing. I mean, they were still trying to win games. They were still fighting. There was no real give up, where some teams that were this bad would just sort of pack it in and kind of lay an egg every week. But I mean, the Miami game in Miami wasn't good, and you thought that would be the turning point where they would just go downhill all the way. But they were in the LA game. They're in the Indy game. They should have won that game. But the point being is the players are still, putting out effort in these games. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they're all saying the right things, how it is from here on out after finally getting their break. Will they really come back recharged, or is it still the start of an early vacation? Are they planning their vacation? So I think that part is still to be determined, as far as how the locker room is or isn't.
Is the way that Drake carries himself on the field enough to keep the team motivated throughout the course of the year? Because it feels like to me
It,
that's what it
it
is.
might be. Yeah. Well, that's the other part. Uh, Again, if you're comparing Mac to Drake, make Drake just seems to have much more command of the offense, command of the huddle, respect of the huddle, uh, than Mac ever had. And again, he's won these guys over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And some of that is his kind of aw shucks personality, but it's also him taking accountability for mistakes, and not just his mistakes, other people's mistakes. He won't throw the offensive lineman under the bus. He won't throw receivers running the wrong route under the bus. He has he's pretty savvy on knowing how to be the leader of the team and how to be the quarterback. And again, it probably goes back to having a father who was a coach, older brothers who were very good in sports. And it's hard. I think he's picked up some things along the way, but he seems like a natural leader. And that's so important for the player who's playing quarterback.
Yeah, I think the last time that the three of us were on this show, when we were making a comp about Mac Jones, we'd all come to the agreement that at his best, he could probably be like a good Chad Pennington, right?
Well, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think at Drake's best, he could be a Lions Matthew Stafford. And that
Mhm.
ceiling, like that difference right there is everything.
Yeah.
And it shows. It absolutely shows.
Mhm.
Um, so like to follow up on Ray's question, like with 4 games left, and your answer cannot be wins. So remember that. What is the most important thing for this team to focus on over the last 4 games of the season?
Progress. And that starts with Drake. It's also finding out more about, some of these players who we've already written off, like the 2 young wide receivers. They need intel on that. Caden Wallace is coming back. Can he help on the line? Perhaps not on the left side as a tackle, but perhaps on the right side. Because all of this information is going to go into their decision making and pursuit of players in the off season. They have to know if their draft picks are really probably headed in the bus category, or if there really is hope for them. Put in the right positions to succeed. Having them not playing out of position, having them not having a right tackle play left tackle, not having a slot guy play out on the, on out on the boundary.
Mhm.
I mean, they need to put these guys in positions to succeed and see if they can succeed. They also have to see, um, again, who's checked out or who's still checked in.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important thing in terms of evaluating players.
Mhm.
You know, i- do you want guys who are going to check out because you're 3-10? Is that the guys you want to build around? Or is it around the guys who are really trying hard to make plays and do things? So I think those things are important. But again, I go back to Bill Parcells' first year and Bill Belichick's first year. Those weren't great years. I mean, I think Parcells' team might have started out 1-11 or 1-10, 1-11, but they won their last 4 games. And it wasn't necessarily about winning. It was how they played and how they looked. Belichick's first year, they were 5-11, but I think they won 3 of their last 6 games. And it was how they played, how they competed in those final games that gave both the fandom hope, but mostly it gave the players hope about the next season. There was a little bit of momentum for them carrying into the next season, thinking we're not going to go through another 3 and whatever season. It's going to be just getting them to think it's going to be better. If they lose out and get bombed in all those games, well, that's another story, and it won't be a good one.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. I think, I mean, obviously, yeah, winning should always be the goal, right? And that's a cliche answer that all of them give. But I'm with you when it comes to the progress. Like, I want to see, I want to see them focus on being more aggressive, right? And that's something that we brought up earlier on the show. That that has to happen. Like, you can't, like the Tennessee game
Yeah.
stands out for me this year, right? You know, you find a way to score on the final drive. And you say, "Oh no, I'd rather go into
Yeah.
in overtime." And I'm like, "No, like
Right.
just go out there, find a way to win the game, because you never know
Right.
what that might have done for the locker room had you gone out and won the game." So, yeah, I wanted to focus on being more aggressive, and I want to see Alex Van Pelt say, and just I want him to have a pulse. I want him to say, "Okay, if this is working where Drake is going crazy and just let him rip. Or if Gibson and Stevenson are going crazy, let them go crazy. Like don't have to say,
Yeah.
well, shoot, we ran 8
Yeah.
times in a row, maybe we gotta pass it, or we passed 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
Let's run it like just have the feel, find the feel, keep building the culture, and if
Yeah.
you build it, you know that they will come. So
Yeah. I think we've actually seen more from Alex Van Pelt and their offense in recent weeks.
yes,
Yep.
It's not this boring run, throw, run. I mean, they've tried to do things. They've tried to open up the offense. But again, going back to where we started, it still ultimately comes down to talent. Coaches can only, do certain things, only do what their talent is capable of doing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And if you don't have the talent, to zig or zag or do what the Chiefs do, or have plays that Buffalo has, teams that have talent. If you don't have the talent, you're kind of handcuffed as to how creative you can be. Or maybe you try to be creative and it's just like, they just can't do it.
Yeah, but to your
They just
point,
can't pull it off.
though, like I say this, and Ray, like his blood pressure spikes. Like there is a difference between a good loss and a bad loss. And I would just point
Oh
to
yeah.
their loss
Yeah.
against the Rams looks better now after what we saw Sunday night.
Yeah.
When they blew out, when they did what they did
When they-
against Buffalo,
Yeah.
right? So like if you see a team,
And it was Buffalo making a bonehead play
I know,
instead of making a
but if
bonehead play at the end.
if over these last 4 games you can be the little engine that couldn't, right? But you try your hardest, the effort is
Yeah.
there. You're going to see, hopefully, to your point, in free agency, how could that coach still get those players to play like that when they had nothing to play for? I want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Dre continues to get better and better and better and better. And these guys are going, he might be kind of cool to catch passes for him, play for, you
Yeah.
know? Or they're going somewhere because they got this kid, right?
Yep.
Put it this way. Do you think, well, with the exception of the income tax or the tax situation, are teams going to be more inclined to go to Tennessee now or come to Boston based on the quarterback situation? Right?
So it should be New England, 100%.
Right.
listen,
Right.
Will Levis, let me come on, let's Will.
Right.
Well, I mean, that
income tax or not, Will Levis is not. He's about to become a Jag down there in Tennessee. He's not the guy of the future. He's just not.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, but they lost out on Ridley to Tennessee.
right.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure he's regretting.
Do you get? I mean,
like it doesn't make sense.
and I don't know if I'd want him, but does Keenan Allen take a look at the Patriots now after seeing what he did in Chicago and say, you know what? I think Drake actually might be the guy.
better than this guy. Well, and again, I can see differences. Again, I'm not. I don't think Caleb Williams is buried.
No.
But the biggest difference I see between the two is that, again, it's that pocket sense and awareness. Drake knows two things better than Caleb or shows. He he moves out of the pocket or runs at the right time. He gets rid of the ball quickly, whereas Caleb Williams is sitting there. Again, Drake's guys aren't getting open, and when Drake knows they're not getting open, he'll run or he'll scramble out and throw the ball away. Caleb holds on and holds on and holds on, sack. Holds on, sack. Or not having an awareness that the clock is running out and you can't throw the ball deep.
Yep. Well, I think that's just the difference of the team, though, right? Is like we talked about this earlier on in the season. Is it felt like Caleb was being brought into a situation where, listen, like we know how good you are, but you don't have to be that way in order for us to win. Just don't lose the game for us. Whereas in New England, it's like, man, Drake, we need you. Like, you need to do whatever you can do in order for us to win the game. It's like he has that little Drew Bledsoe from 01 in his ear saying, no, F that. Just go out there and sling it. Just go sling it.
Right. And the only issue Drake's coming up with in that scenario of he has to be the guy, he's made a few too many turnovers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. You know, again, trying to do things either in the final minutes of games or you know, not being careful with the ball when he's trying to elude the rush. But the other beauty or other really good thing about Drake, he's definitely someone who learns from his mistakes. And he's somebody who really tries not to be the repeat offender.
Right.
You'll see him make a certain mistake one week and that mistake is gone the next week. So he really tries, he is trying to get better, but he is also keenly aware that he needs personally to be aggressive for this team to have a chance. And he understands that. He's just trying to define those parameters, right?
Yep.
You know, can I get away with sticking the ball in there? Can I get away with doing this? Can I get away with, okay, it didn't happen that time or that got picked off. That's not going to happen again. But you don't want him to get like Mac Jones and be afraid of everything. Every single thing.
Everything.
Right. So he still has that mentality. And I just hope, things don't happen in the last four games to change that mentality.
Right.
Yeah.
One last. Go ahead, Ray. And I'm
No,
close it out.
okay, that was beautiful. I'm like, I just want Drake to keep getting better, and keep progressing, keep growing. Like I said, he's been the gem, in the season. So I just want to see him keep handling business. So he's been.
All right, so we're recording this Monday night, December 9th. We are on Belichick Watch. So the last question I have for you, Miss Karen, would be Bill to the University of North Carolina. What does that say about how the NFL teams feel about him and his approach if he's going to go to a program like that instead of going after Don Shula's record, which he is 15 wins away from breaking?
It sure appears like the NFL is done with the Bill Belichick way, or are too. I think owners are too skittish or nervous to have somebody come in and take control, especially someone his age,
right?
Whose shelf life isn't. It's not like he's going to be the coach 5-10 years or 20 years like he was in 20 plus years like he was in New England. It's a short window, and it's a short window to kind of blow up your organization for. It had to be for a certain circumstance where an owner thought Belichick will put them over the top. It can't be a rebuilding situation because that eliminates a ton of teams. But it'd have to be a team that's relatively close, that you insert Belichick, who's not going to lose games because of stupid coaching decisions. Hello, Buffalo. he's not, Bill's not going to make those type of mistakes. He is still, in my estimation, a great coach. The problem comes into play with control, wanting his people, wanting it his way, wanting total control or just control enough. And teams with established structures or established GMs want no part of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're all trying to protect their jobs.
Yep.
And again, if you don't have a strong owner who's going to move in and say, I'm going to let Belichick do what he wants, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't. And it's apparently Bill has gotten that message for him to be, or he's calling teams bluff by getting this close to being the guy at UNC, and that still very well could happen.
I mean, for me, I still think the NFL is still in play. I just think that he's not bringing it up. Clearly, him and Pat McAfee have built some type of rapport where he feels comfortable enough to share that. It's kind of become the new Michael Lombardi, so to speak.
Yeah.
Who becomes his lackey, so to speak. I know, Mike. I know.
Mhm.
But that's kind of what we see in there. But I still think like a team like Philly is in play if they don't do well in the postseason. Once again, I know they've been winning a lot of games. I know they
Yeah.
struggled against Carolina this past weekend, but like if they don't get to the Super Bowl and like I said, or win it, I could totally see them, on Black Monday saying, "Hey, Coach Sirianni, we thank you for your services, but they no longer need it." And on that Tuesday, and it won't be on a paper napkin. He'll be the new coach of.
Well, Ray, that to me is like the perfect situation
Right.
for him.
Yeah.
But is he going to wait that long? And what if like Philadelphia wins? Then he's somehow wins, and
I mean,
and
but to me, the UNC thing should be there because it's like it's not like in February.
colleges have to have their coaches now because the portal opens.
Got you right. Yeah, that's right.
Because you can't be waiting around. I mean, kids are going to be in the portal and leaving if you don't have a coach. Why are they going to stay if you don't know who the coach is? Or
Is he really thick-headed enough to say, unless you give me everything that I want, full control, I'm not going to go after Don Shula's record?
Well, I know he's stubborn. I know he's arrogant, and it surprises me. And again, why can't people compromise? Why can't he compromise if he just coach?
Yeah.
Right.
Or
He would be here. He would still be here.
Or why won't these prospective teams, work out a compromise with Belichick, with the people that are in place that they don't want to lose jobs? Why can't they just come to some kind of compromise on the power issue? It's like a perfect job for Belichick, Chicago.
I know.
Right? So, but I don't even think they're even thinking of him at all. They're going to go with the Detroit guy.
Yeah.
Well, with the way that they
offensive
pay,
coordinator.
Or even
skill
the guy
players.
from what's his name? The coordinator from Houston, OC guy. I think his name is Bobby Slowick. I think he's someone be an option for some teams as well.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Like Belichick.
Well, how about Jacksonville?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So my knowledge is,
You want to go wreck Mac again?
He's good with, well, Mac's gone after the year. Mac only on a 1-year deal, but he and the owner, Shad Khan, get along well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Khan and you're saying, okay, Belichick's coming, he's going to bring McDaniels, who will fix Trevor Lawrence. He will make our defense elite, and we'll play like we're supposed to play and not be this pathetic team that we are right now. And again, I think, a place like Jacksonville, again, you have the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You have a defense that's underachieving. Again, another.
Yeah, you'll have other guys that want to play down there because they want to play for him.
Right. Right. And you have another perfect landing spot. And it just, again, Doug Peterson isn't out yet, but the assumption is he is going to be out.
I've
Yeah, he's
Again, there's just some of these situations that I just don't get.
I've also heard, though, and you're obviously the person that could verify this or not, that the linchpin in Jacksonville is John's son, Tony, and he doesn't want Bill to be there.
Yeah, I think he's their analytics guy.
Yeah, he's like that.
Honest to God.
You can't have two nepotism situations under one organization, right? So
Right. But again, to have those things block the potential of where you might be going,
right, right.
It just,
I'm with you.
a little mind blowing.
Listen, if I'm Bill and Philly says, "Listen, Bill, we want you to come in here, but you do not you get to cook the dinner, but you cannot pick the groceries."
Yeah.
Bill, you need to do it because I think he's a better coach than Don Shula. I didn't live through much of Don.
Yeah.
Right. So beat that record. Do it. He deserves to do that.
I think Philly is the best one because I actually think Belichick respects Howie Roseman, who's the GM there. I think perhaps that's where a compromise could come into play, about buying groceries and all.
Yeah.
And Bill's control, and maybe it's, they can work out something because Bill, I believe, he respects the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, has a good relationship with him, and he has my understanding, a good relationship with the GM. So, but again, that situation, Philadelphia is in first place in the division, and they usually don't crap the bed till the playoffs. So we'll see again, because I don't think their head coach is in any great shape.
Right. I mean, and Bill has leverage right now. Sorry, Ray, but Bill has leverage right now. But if he doesn't accept that UNC job by this time next week, he loses his leverage because every NFL organization will know that he's just pitting them against each other to get the best job.
Right. Yeah. Right. And again, is he really, really gonna?
Well, I mean, we haven't brought this up. I mean, it's been said, but what if he goes to Vegas?
Oh, and he works for Tom? Yeah, that'll happen.
Really?
I mean, it seems like the relationship has been repaired to an extent. So I mean,
given that Coach Prime, Dion is already lobbying Antonio Pierce to select either Travis Hunter or Shador, I think that means that Antonio Pierce is going to have a job as the head coach next year.
I don't think Prime cares whoever's there. He's just
well. The other thing is, I think, and this is why Dallas might not be in play outside of Jerry Jones being a weirdo. I think Bill would like to stay on the East Coast. I don't think he wants to be out that far away from his root here.
Yeah.
Or, so, that's why Philadelphia would be great. The New York, either New York job, although you can eliminate the Jets. And I'm not sure what's happening with Daboll, if he's in or out. Jacksonville works. I mean, I think Bill just got a house in a place in Florida, but in Tampa. And that's not that close, but close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chicago would be I think the furthest west, right? Because he does have ties to the Detroit Lions. He did work for them back in the day. So he'll go to the Midwest.
Right. Well, like Chicago too. And again, I think Bill's a big historian. George Halas, the Halas family. I think that comes into play too with him and where he might want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, but hey, we might find out this week that he's going to UNC.
Well, Miss Karen Guregian, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. This is always my favorite show of the year. Thank you for all the great reporting, everything that you do over at Mass Live, everything you've done over the years. And I can't wait to have you on to discuss how the Patriots are going to fuck up the draft. But until then, For Hollywood and Rayshawn Buchanan, for Karen Guregian, this is Michael Marcangelo saying thank you so much for listening to Missing the Point. We'll talk to you next week.
Hello, folks. Earl Breon here, host of the Responsible Leadership Podcast, part of the Best Business Network on Electricast. If you're looking for a show to bring you some of the best leadership advice from some of the top thought leaders around the globe, this is the show for you. You can find us on all the podcast platforms of choice or on social media by following me, Earl Breon, B-R-E-O-N.
Electricast.
Everyone has heard about the U.S. space program, but what is actually going on at NASA? Get the real story in 4 minutes or less with the NASA Daily Podcast from Electricast. Join astronauts and researchers as they conduct groundbreaking experiments, work on the International Space Station, and reach for the stars. NASA Daily, your cosmic update.
Electricast. Electricast.